Are you finding that your spiritual journey is difficult, challenging? Well, the reason for that may be because you're overthinking this whole entire process. I'm going to share with you 5 things to help you to actually stop overthinking and recognize that spirituality can be a lot simpler and easier than you've thought. My name is Peter Abundant, aka Dr. Abundant, PhD, and ordained minister of metaphysical sciences, which is ultimately the study of spirituality. I am also the author of The Enlightened Shadow and Spiritual, Not Religious. So for many of us, when we take on this spiritual journey, it can seem like there are so many things, so many avenues, so many directions, so many books, so many teachings that we can grasp at that are available to us. And we're often paralyzed by these options because we want to pick the right one. I'm going to help you out with that, okay? Because when you really understand there is no right one, they're all right. You just have to understand and identify what resonates with you exactly. So it's going to take you, going into deep dives and really like just following your curiosity, seeing something, seeing a book, and just allowing it to resonate with you and acknowledge, okay, this book for some reason is something that I'm drawn to. Let me buy it. And trusting in that process. Okay. So the first thing though, you really want to do when it comes to discontinuing the overthinking of spirituality is really recognizing that spirituality is neutral, right? It's natural. Okay. You don't need to chase spirituality. You don't need to be intense about spirituality. When we talk about things like intention, for many people, intention can be a word that has a lot of layers and complexities to it, right? Intention can be simply putting the thought out there. But for some people, intention is being aggressive, okay? So what I want you to understand, though, is when it comes to spirituality, you must think of water, okay, as an element that can take many shapes and forms depending on its environment, depending on where it is, the temperature of where it is, right? That can be looked at as the vibration, the frequency, the vibe of the particular moment, okay, the phase of your life, and just learning how to maneuver through that in a way that is essentially almost like the path of least resistance. But you always want to allow for growth. So you don't want to be too adaptive to the point where you are just going along with everything passively, recognizing that the things that are happening don't align with who you are. So you must acknowledge that because that is essentially the rocks along the river that is actually directing you to go a certain way. You see? So it's important to recognize that this path of spirituality is not about forcing something. It's about going along your natural process, your natural state of existence, right? Following a natural flow that only exists and is experienced through and by you. Okay. And it is only for you. And so you have to trust that. Okay. Not that you need to step out of yourself because it's not outside of you. Spirituality is all within. And, that leads to another thing of recognizing that it is not about outside sources, looking at the books, listening to particular teachers or coaches. It's not about that at all. It's about recognizing that all of this that you desire, fulfillment, happiness, joy, right? Power, tapping into that ability to create and materialize that which you want, to manifest the life that you want, that is all within you. You have to always keep that in mind. You have to recognize that all of the books, all of the videos, all of the teachers, they are just beacons or tools that allow you to identify what resonates with you already. You see, just like you watching me, listening to me right now. You listen, okay, because there's a part of me that resonates with you, right? There are so many spiritual teachers out there. You pick the one that resonates with you. Then you take what that teacher says, right? And you identify out of what that teacher says, what identifies, what resonates with you, and you receive it. You see what things triggers you, and you identify those triggers, and then you be very contemplative about what's going on. And so that way you can use those as tools to ascend to another place by identifying, okay, if this triggers me, why does it trigger me? Don't just accept the trigger. Don't just accept that there was a button pushed. Ask yourself why, because that is going to allow you to evolve into your true self. Okay. The next thing you want to do is you want to let go of the need to be perfect. We tend to think that spirituality looks a certain way, that it looks like meditating under a tree for hours or even days, right? That it looks like fasting for long, long periods of time, right? That it looks like speaking quietly and calmly whenever you communicate, that it looks like never being angry or never being aggressive or frustrated. You see, we have these ideas of what it means to be perfect in a spiritual sense. And we think that that is what we're supposed to achieve and look like. You know, you see many people who are quite evolved, but they have this impression about them that they are just simply following a mold, right? They're just being, they were placed in a cookie cutter. They are just fitting a mold and they look similar to one another. And that is really, I'm not one to question if they're being their authentic self. That's for them to do. But it lends you to ask yourself, is that the kind of spirituality that resonates with you? Chances are it won't. And so you acknowledge that and recognize that spirituality is not about chasing an idea of perfection. It is about understanding that you are already perfect as you are. And what I mean as you are, as you truly are, the core of who you are, right? Consciousness. And so when you recognize that, you recognize your personality, your persona, your ego, and you know how to place all those things in its proper place, and you lead with consciousness, then you recognize that you are already perfect. It was just a matter of aligning the imbalance that may have existed, throughout your life up until this point. So let go of the pressure to get it right, to be perfect, to look a certain way. It's really about feeling, not what it's supposed to look like. It is about what it's supposed to feel like. So step away from these ideas of perfection and recognize you're already perfect. And then just simply trust in the process of uncovering and unfolding the feeling of self-acceptance. The next thing you want to do is stay present. Okay. Don't get so trapped in your mind. Okay. Overthinking, it happens when you live in your mind instead of living in the moment. So be here in the moment. Now, yeah, you can be here in the moment and still be in your mind. That's true. But it's really about being in the experience of what's happening. The mind can overanalyze, criticize, critique, right? What's happening in the moment. But when you are being in the moment, in the experience of the moment, meaning you are conscious of what's happening and you are just accepting what's happening as they happen without criticizing, judging, analyzing, assessing, coming up with a conclusion or assumption, then you are free. Okay. You must recognize that being in the present moment isn't about being in your mind. It's simply about accepting the moment as it is, embracing the moment as it is, embracing your moment, because every moment is your moment. Okay. Every moment is steps of unfoldment, of realization, of taking just one more step along this path of spirituality, which leads you to true understanding, true realization. So you have to let go of overthinking, being in your head, just really recognizing that these things that are happening around you are for you, and they're not out to get you. They're not out to harm you. They're not out to, you don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to be perfect. You can just allow and enjoy. Okay. Next, trust your inner knowing. So you already know what feels true to you, right? The problem is, though, the mind, the ego tends to wants to throw doubt at you because really it's trying to protect you. Okay. It's trying to stop a negative experience or something similar to it from happening again. Right. That's basically what's happening with the ego. And so you start looking for, permission outside of yourself to validate what's already telling you is true, which is like your intuition, your inner knowing. That's your consciousness communicating to you. So when you are on a path and you have a decision to make, many times people are stuck and indecisive about decisions. But when you recognize, okay, these are the pros and cons, right? That's something that's mature and responsible to do. This is how my decisions can impact myself and the people that I love. You have to ask yourself what's important to you, what's true for you. You have to go with the inner knowing of, well, regardless of the pros and cons, if I do it this way, I'm not going to be fulfilled. And I know that if I do it this way, I'm going to be closer to fulfillment, right? I'm going to be free of, negative vibrations, negative feelings, or being unsure, uncertain. And therefore, then you simply just say, okay, you know what? I'm going to make this decision with the knowing that it's about what resonates with you at the moment, not so much trying to predict the future or trying to say, well, I want to avoid this, and I don't want to experience this. So therefore I'm going to pick this, even though it doesn't align with who you are. So you have to tap into that inner knowing, instead of looking for outside validation, because a lot of times with our decisions, we decide from a place of looking for validation. We decide from a place of looking like, that job is perfect and I'm happy there. That my partner and I are completely compatible and I am happy there and I'm aligned there. That me going to this church is part of my success and I'm happy there. And it's part of my fulfillment and I'm happy there, even though I do not like the people there. So you have to really understand that making decisions, it's not about trying to look a certain way to other people, seeking that outside validation. Okay. It's about really recognizing that you have to trust in yourself and you have to align yourself with the things that you desire, because that is really going to just manifest into real happiness and a deeper connection with your higher self. Okay. Finally, last thing, keep it simple and personal. Spirituality, it doesn't need to be complicated. In fact, the best spiritual teachers, books, very simple. Okay. Because it is. We overcomplicate things. We overcomplicate things because we think that success, that fulfillment, that joy is something that we have to work extremely hard for. Now, yes, effort is important. Intention is important. Consistency is important. You're going to face challenges, right? Because you are transitioning from a mindset that didn't serve you into one that is aligned with who you are. Then you have to break free of all those barriers and limiting beliefs. But ultimately, you have to recognize that, this process is one that is about connecting with yourself. So you are the closest person to you, like literally, right? You are with yourself constantly, moment to moment, 24/7 throughout the rest of your life. And so when we think in terms of, well, I need this, I need that, maybe I need this, maybe I need that, and we're looking so much outside of ourselves, or if somebody tells us something, and it just sounds too simple, we feel a sense of inadequacy, like, oh no, it must be more complicated than that, right? So you have to understand that it is very simple, because just like the distance of walking to the most important person, or finding the most important person, right, to you or in the universe, there is none, because you are that person. So we're looking, right, for love everywhere, willing to travel the faces of the earth to find this perfect partner. But you are that perfect partner, you know? So that's what I mean by us making things too complicated and not being simple about our approach, because spirituality is simple. It is not complicated. There are just many interpretations from people's individual experience, but ultimately they all have a common, fundamental understanding. Go within, access all that is of you within you, and that will essentially express itself outward into your outward reality. Okay. So make this process your own, because it is your own. This is your journey. Be mindful about exploring other people's perspectives and belief systems, but always acknowledge that even though you are reading somebody's book, you're reading a religious text, that you are always reading and experiencing that from your own perspective. When you acknowledge that and see the connection there, because often people are disconnected to that fact, that you are always adding the subjective perspective, okay, of your consciousness to every single thing that you see, hear, and do. That means that because it is always coming from consciousness, your consciousness, that everything is essentially created, right, or seen from the lens of that consciousness, meaning that it is yours. Okay. And so because we don't see that, we don't understand that concept, we think that the outside reality is true reality. But no, internally, you are reality. You are creating this reality. We think things like facts are an expression of a reality that is and cannot be changed by you, but they can be, they can be. But essentially, all I'm saying is that this is your journey, and it can never be not. It will always be your journey. So trust in yourself to actually give you the things, the tools, the access, the information, the wisdom that you need to get to the point that you will eventually get to, which is self-realization, which is recognizing you are the creator of your universe. Okay, that you are a divine spark, an individualized expression of that which we call God. That is what you are. That is who you are. Okay, so your path is yours. Don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple, right? As simple as you want to make it. That's exactly how simple this process can and should be. Once it gets into the realm of being complicated, then it gets into the realm of actually being further away from your actual path. You see, because when you think about it, this path is customized for you. So taking a path, or being on a path, living in existence where things feel uncomfortable, uneasy, frustrating, right, is obviously misaligned with who you are. That's why it feels complicated. That's why you feel frustrated. That's why you feel depressed or annoyed. You see, because it is not in alignment on the same frequency of you, your consciousness, and what you're supposed to be doing. So you have to think and pull it back, pull yourself back out of that situation, recognize the disconnection, recognize the misalignment, and understand that, hey, this is a path right, to myself. Therefore, that path should essentially be short, very short, right? But also it should be simple, direct, right? A direct connection, a direct experience, a direct knowing. Direct means simple, straight, okay? Not wavy, not curly, no loops, nothing like that. So keep it simple. Once you understand and identify the simplicity of the path as it reveals itself to you, then you understand, okay, you're getting there. You're tapping into something. You are aligning with your true self. And so those are the things that I invite you to really explore and get into, to stop overthinking spirituality, because it's not complicated. You know, it's again comes down to a few things: being simple, being consistent, right? Most importantly, being consistent and being true and authentic to yourself and what you feel, what feels good and natural to you. Thank you so much. Feel free to go to drabundant.com, subscribe to my daily newsletter, and get access to this free ebook, The Power Within. Continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.